Hello, I'm Mr. Rivera, and this is a little tutorial for how to use Google Sheets with our electric bill project that we have coming up. So this is not going into the specifics of the instructions of the project. This is more so just how to use Google Sheets. So first off, this is the template that I had uploaded on all of our Google Classrooms. In order to use this, we need to know something off the bat. We need to know how exactly do we reference cells in Excel. So before I do any of that, actually, you'll see in these two cells, there are some instructions, right? In this green cell, we say you will fill in numbers for columns highlighted this color, and you will write formulas. They start with an equal sign for columns highlighted this color. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so that we can see that a little clearer. So what does this mean? That means that the columns in green, we are going to be typing in information, just straight numbers. I'm going to be putting in maybe refrigerator, say I have one of them in my house, and we'll just say it uses 100 watts, and it's on for 8 hours a day. I'm just typing numbers into those boxes. These orange boxes, I need to start typing formula. We'll get into that in a second. Here, I also wrote a comment on this sheet. This cell needs to be the price per kilowatt hour based on your research. So you are going to look up exactly how much does electricity cost in your area. I'm going to use the example I used in class from, it's a little outdated, it was over a year ago. I'll say we have 0.20, no, we'll do 25.6 cents. So I'm putting it in as 0.256. I'll hit enter, and now it shows up as a price. So this is all the information I needed to type to begin with. Now what I can do is I can start calculating the important pieces of information we need for this project. So you might also notice this column here. It's not in view. I can't see all the text in there. So one way I can fix that is I can go right here next to I, and I can drag to the appropriate width, but let's just say I overshoot it. Okay, I need to go back. That's a lot of work. Instead of manually adjusting it like that, what you can do is you can just double click right there, and there's an automatic change. What you could also do, if you have a bunch of columns that are not the way they should be, let's just mess it up. I want all these columns to be fixed. So how could I do that? I can select a column by clicking on the letter. So I just selected F. I can actually select F and keep my mouse clicked down. This is a left click all the way through I, which is the column I want to fix. I want to fix all 4 of them. Now I can go to any one of these lines in between the columns, and I can double click it. Now all the columns were just auto-sized. So you may have noticed I use letters to reference these columns. When we're in Excel or Google Sheets, because they're very similar, spreadsheets, period, we reference cells by using a letter and a number. So in this case, the cell I'm currently highlighting is F4. And you'll see if you click into any cell, the column and the row both change colors to say exactly where you are. So this cell right here is J3. This refrigerator is B4. In the top left of our sheets, we always start with A and 1. Now, the way I made this template, I left a space there just because I find it visually appealing. I've been working with Excel for years now, and I hate my data just clumped up in the corner. That's just me. I just made that adjustment. So our first cell that we are putting data in is B4. So I put in refrigerator. I have one refrigerator in my house, C4. For D4, I know that refrigerator uses 100 watts. That's the power rating. You can find that on the sticker of your refrigerator. And for E4, I'm writing down how many hours this refrigerator is on in a day. Now that's just an estimate. These are just numbers. Don't use these exact numbers for your project. So now that we've done that, we can start putting in our formula. I want to figure out if this is the power rating of my appliance. Our utility companies use kilowatt hours to measure energy. Now, if you've been paying attention in class, when we work with SI units, we don't use kilowatts and we don't use hours. So why are we measuring in kilowatt hours? That's just what the energy companies use. So we need to conform to their standards if we want to actually make a bill as if they were doing it. So to convert this 100 watts to kilowatts, our conversion factor is 1,000. Right? 1,000 watts is 1 kilowatt. So what does that mean? That means that we're going to take this value, divide it by 1,000 to spit out some other value. Let me zoom in just a little bit more. There you go. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a formula. I want Sheets to do all the work for me. So whenever I want to use a formula, I always have to start with our equal sign or an equal sign. It might give you a suggestion. I'm not a fan of these suggestions, so I'm going to turn them off. I just left-clicked on there, and I'm going to turn off suggestions. I also don't want that to appear. Can I get that to turn off, actually? Ooh, I made a mistake. Equals. Okay. So I start off with the equal sign, and then I want to take our power rating. I want to reference this cell. So one thing I could do is I could type D4. Then I want to divide it by 1,000. I can hit enter, and I get a number there. Now, if I click into here, you can see that the cells I'm referencing are highlighted, and it matches the color. That's going to be important when we're working with Sheets. We want to know what we're referencing, and then I can just click out of it. For the total power, I'm saying, okay, I know one refrigerator uses 0.1 kilowatts, but let's just say I had 2 refrigerators. So I'm changing my quantity to 2. My total power for 2 refrigerators, I'm going to start a function, so an equal sign. I want to take this value and multiply it by however many refrigerators I have. So I can type down F4. That's one thing I could do. Or I can left click. So just to be sure, I hit escape there. Just to be sure we know what we're doing. First, we hit equal sign. Then we can click the cell we're referencing. Then I want to multiply. So for multiplication, we're not using X. If you have a number pad, it's toward the top right. It's the star. If you don't have a number pad, a dedicated pad, it is Shift 8. You'll get that star symbol. We're going to multiply it by how many refrigerators we have. So I click into there, and now you can see this orange F4 and that purple C4. They're being multiplied together. Now, if I try to click away, okay, I just keep referencing cells. So when you're at this stage, you want to hit enter. Now, to figure out our energy usage, it's going to be measured in kilowatt hours. That is kilowatts times hours. We want to multiply this value by our daily usage. Let me go ahead and make a formula equals total power multiplied by our daily usage. So in one day, I use 1.6 kilowatt hours. I use 1.6 kilowatt hours. Hold on. All right, sorry for the skip there. Someone came into my room to talk to me. So we want to figure out our monthly energy usage. And we need to use a formula. I will say, okay, this is our energy usage for one day. For 1 month, we're going to assume 30 days. Equals H4 multiplied by how many days there are. So multiplied just by 30. And I can hit enter. And in a month, I use 48 kilowatt hours. Now, finally, for this price, we are just going to multiply our energy usage by the price per kilowatt hour. And if you do a little dimensional analysis, you'll quickly see that this final column should just get us a price if we multiply a price per kilowatt hour multiplied by kilowatt hours. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to say equals I4 times price per kilowatt hour. And I'm going to hit enter. So in a month, to run 2 refrigerators with a 100-watt rating, 8 hours a day, I will pay $12.29 in a month. Now, let's just say I have some 60-watt light bulbs. I'll say some incandescent light bulbs. And let's just say I have 6 of them in my home. So you may notice I'm moving around the cells without clicking on them. I can use my arrow keys, but in this case, I was using tab to move to the right. If I hit enter, I move down. It's different on Excel and Sheets, but it follows the same general format. I'm hitting tab right now. These incandescent light bulbs use 60 watts. Our daily usage, they're on for 12 hours a day. Notice how I'm not putting units in those cells. They're just numbers. My units are in the header. If I were to put, let's just say, a unit here, maybe 100 watts, let's see what happens to the rest of this row. If I hit enter, nothing is able to calculate. So if I click into here, we're still referencing that cell, but it's expecting a number. 100 watts, 100W is not a number. So I'll hit escape now. I'll go back into here and get rid of that watts. If I hit enter, it's fixed again. So I can go ahead and type this in once again. I want to say 60 watts divided by 1,000, and I can do that again, but that's a lot of work. I could do 2 options. My first option is I've already done the work right above it. So I could copy the cell and I could paste it down below. So I did Control C. Now if I hit Control V, I've pasted it. But wait, if I copied and pasted a cell, wouldn't you expect the same value to appear? Well, let's actually click into the cell to see what it's evaluating. I'm going to double click, and I see it's referencing F4 and C4. Okay, now let me double click into this cell. Oh, it's referencing F5 and C5. We call that a relative reference. Right? That relative reference allows it so that I can keep copying this straight down. And as I copy it down, let me just show you an example. Copy, paste, 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 paste. If I click into them, it's going to reference the cells next to it relative to the cell that we're looking at. It references one cell to the left and then 2, 3, 4 cells to the left. One cell, 4 cell. One cell, fourth cell. One cell, fourth cell. So I'm going to undo that. Another thing we could do, instead of copying and pasting, if you look at this cell, it's surrounded in blue. The bottom right here has a little square. Now, if I click out of the cell, you don't see the square anymore. You want to be clicked into the cell. You want to see that square. Wait until your cursor changes shape like that. Click, it's a left click, and drag down. It just copied down. It copied over. So if I double click there, it's that same thing. I'm going to do the same thing here. And I'll do the same thing. I'll do the same thing here. So I see in a month, if I have 6 60-watt light bulbs operating for 12 hours a day, in a month I'm using 129.6 kilowatt hours. Now let me do the same thing with the price. Oh. Okay, that's a lot of money. I don't think your house's energy bill comes out to thousands of dollars in a month. So let's click into this first formula to see what it's referencing. Okay, we're referencing I4 and J3. Okay, now if I click into here, oh, it's I5 and J4. So notice, these are relative references still. We're looking at the cell right above, cell to the left. Cell right above, cell to the left. I don't want to reference the cell right above it. What I want to do is I want to reference J3. But it's going to be a lot of work to constantly change this value to J3. So instead of referencing this cell manually for every one of these other cells, I want to turn these relative references, or rather this one relative reference, into an absolute reference. The way I can turn it into an absolute reference is by, instead of just saying J3, I can say $J, $3. I'll hit enter. Notice this number did not change at all. Now if I drag this down, this looks more realistic. This tells me exactly, well, a more realistic number of how much money I am paying for the lights. So let's do one more line. Let's say instead of incandescent light bulbs, I have LED light bulbs. And let's just say I have 10 of them. I have 10 of them. Each of them use 10 watts. And my daily usage is 12 hours a day still. Instead of clicking each one of these cells and dragging them down, I could do this. Highlights everything I want to bring down. Now, this whole selection, you'll see this blue box again on the bottom right. It's on the bottom right of the whole selection. I'll click and drag right down. Boom. Look how much cheaper LED lights are, even though I have more. And you'll do that for the whole project. One final piece is you want to calculate the sum of everything. Let me zoom out again. Back to 100. Scroll up. Now these totals in the bottom, I want to figure out how many devices do we have? What's the total power rating in your home? What's the total amount of time things are on for? So on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is let's just make it a bigger cell. Let's go into, actually, let's work on the C column. I'll make it bigger. in here, I can say equals, and the formula for sum, instead of just referencing cells with nothing else, I want to find the sum, so I'll type in the word sum. This also gives you a few suggestions. I don't like that. I'm not going to use it. I don't use suggestions like that. Now, the sum here, we want to open the parentheses, and now we can start referencing cells. So I want to reference everything that I have. Now, I could just reference the 3 cells that I'm using. I could also just highlight everything above it. I could either close the parentheses and hit enter, or just hit enter from here, and it'll automatically do it. And you'll see the sum is indeed 18. We have 18 items. Now I can take this, drag it to the right, and that function was copied over. Look at that. We have the sum there, the sum of that column, the sum of this column, so on and so forth. This right here is my total energy bill. Now, one thing that's great about Excel and Sheets is it's a great what if tool. So this is the price per kilowatt hour in New York, let's say. But let's say you lived, somewhere in the rest of the country. So our price per kilowatt hour is not 0.256 per kilowatt hour. Let's just say it's 0.145. Notice how my numbers didn't change yet? Look at that right column once I hit enter. All the prices changed. I can hit Control Z, go back. I can see my total price went down from $54.68 to $30.97. So that should be it for the project. Those are all the skills you'll need. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll do my best to help.